In the dark, freezing waters of Kola Bay, a Soviet diesel submarine slices through the icy surface, beginning a journey in total secrecy. This was one of 4 submarines making up the 69th Brigade. They were state-of-the-art for the early 60s, but they had one defining characteristic. They were designed strictly for the freezing temperatures of the Arctic. This chart compares ordered travel speed against maximum stealth speed. To reach the Caribbean on schedule, the crew had to travel at twice the safe speed. Because their engines needed air, they could only remain submerged for 1% of their time at sea. Long before the crew ever reached the conflict zone, their primary defense mechanism, secrecy, had already been compromised by their own orders. As the submarine crossed into the Atlantic, President Kennedy appeared on television to announce a naval blockade of Cuba, instantly escalating the standoff. This map shows the overwhelming U.S. naval net awaiting them. Over 200 combat surface ships and specialized anti-submarine warfare aircraft carriers were dispatched to hunt Soviet vessels. The United States had also deployed experimental deep-water detection systems, a network of acoustic sensors the Soviet crew knew absolutely nothing about. B-59 was sailing blindly into an inescapable, high-tech naval trap against a vastly superior force. In the Sargasso Sea, the U.S. Navy initiated a strategy known as hunt to exhaustion, using aggressive, low-altitude air patrols and destroyers to relentlessly track the Soviet vessels. To force the submarines to the surface, U.S. forces dropped acoustic sonobuoys and explosive grenades, sending violent concussions echoing through the water around the hidden crew for days on end. The constant explosions above forced B-59 to stay deep underwater to avoid detection, which rapidly drained its electric accumulator batteries. The U.S. tactic worked, forcing the Soviet crew to choose between immediate discovery on the surface or a slow, suffocating death below it. This cross-section of the B-59 highlights a critical vulnerability. It lacked air conditioning and relied on sealed bulkheads, causing its Arctic design to fail in tropical waters. Temperatures spiked to 50 degrees Celsius in living quarters and 65 degrees in the engine rooms. The daily conditions became horrific. Carbon dioxide levels climbed dangerously high, toxic fuel vapors filled the unventilated air, and the men broke out in severe skin rashes. The crew was surviving on just 250 grams of drinking water a day, repeatedly fainting at their posts as they struggled to repair failing machinery. Finally, the exhausted accumulator batteries died completely, plunging the stifling metal tube into total darkness. By the time the power failed, the toxic, sweltering environment inside B-59 had become a more immediate, lethal threat than the U.S. Navy above. With no other option, B-59 breached the surface, its small conning tower emerging directly into the center of an entire U.S. fleet, an aircraft carrier and 9 surrounding destroyers. The U.S. forces immediately escalated their provocations, flying heavy aircraft dangerously close to the hull and dropping warning depth charges directly in the submarine's path. The Soviet commander had specific battle instructions. He was authorized to use his weapons, including a nuclear-tipped torpedo, if the submarine suffered an armed attack. Under standard military doctrine, this chaotic barrage from the surrounding fleet constituted an armed attack that justified a nuclear launch. Then, a U.S. plane flew mere meters above the conning tower, firing a barrage of over 300 automatic cannon shells. A fraction of a second before the gunfire started, powerful searchlights snapped on, completely blinding the exhausted commander in the pitch-black night. In those critical seconds, the commander was physically shocked. Unable to see, he was completely frozen, incapable of issuing an instinctive order to crash dive and return fire. As he blinked and his vision slowly cleared, he realized the tracer rounds were firing past the boat as a warning, rather than directly into it. The survival of the world came down to the physical endurance of a broken crew, and a commander who used his few seconds of shock to choose restraint over retaliation.